All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to talk to you today, December 14th, and I hope you'll talk to me. I've said that almost those exact words in recent programs. I haven't been getting your calls. I do want to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Give me a call, even though I haven't even yet started on the topics of the day. But I think you can probably guess either from the thumbnail that I posted, "This Must End," showing Zelensky with U.S. arms manufacturers, or the topics that I've been focused on over the past few weeks, mainly endless war with a specific focus on Israel, not Ukraine. Today we'll also address Ukraine. We're not going to ignore what's going on in Gaza, the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. Oh, and by the way, on that topic, and one of the things that I've really been focused on right now is what is the moral imperative? What do we have to do when we're faced with this kind of evil? And I don't really know. And that's something I'd like you to tell me. What do you think is the necessary, the essential response? It's not like we get to just choose. The anti-racists say that if you're not an anti-racist, you're a pro-racist. And, I don't like their framing whatsoever. And there are a lot of issues that I have with those folks. But I will say this: when we are confronted with great evil, and the racism it's innate, it's part of our nature to be tribal and to think we're better than people who don't look like us and come from different places and worship different gods and all that. I mean, that's just, there's advantages to believing that, to feeling that in your bones and your marrow. So that's innate. But I'm not about just crying and screaming racism or anti-Semitism. I want specific examples. Who's being killed? Who's being harmed? Who's being kept from getting a job that they should get? Let's talk about the specific examples so we can maybe try to stop them. And right now, we've got plenty of examples of people being killed, murdered, whether it's in Gaza or their land being taken away in the West Bank, or just land being laid waste, completely turned into a cratered desert like in eastern Ukraine. So these are all just horrible, horrible things that are happening right now in our world. And I wonder, I question you, what is the moral imperative? What do we have to do not to be complicit in these crimes, especially when you factor in how the United States government is supporting the Israeli genocide against the Gazan people, especially when you factor in that the United States government is supporting endless war in Ukraine, and that region, that very, very frequently war-torn region, again, being ripped apart, and, thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of lives lost, certainly over 500,000 casualties now in that deadly, horrible conflict. So my question, if you want to call and respond to my question, is what do we have to do? What must we do to consider ourselves to be moral people who are fighting evil? That is what I'd like to know. And I'd like to know what you think on that very score. 240-242-5646. And again, don't forget to click like, don't forget to click subscribe. Got a really, really nice email from a viewer. I don't know if she's new, but she was very, very complimentary. So I thank you. Kind words go an awful long way with me. I'll take your criticism, negative, but I'd much prefer positive. Of course, I think that's what human beings, how we are. All right, so Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, I don't know what his motives are. I don't know why he's keeping this endless war going and seeing his people killed, injured, losing land. Now, it could end. And I think he could end it. I really do. I mean, I understand, this is not a tail wagging the dog situation. Zelensky isn't wagging the U.S. The U.S. is the big dog here. And we're telling Zelensky this is going on. I mean, we have made clear to him that the U.S. wants this to continue, but he has power. He is the president of the country. He could say, I want this to end. This has got to end. We're going to start negotiating with Russia right now. We're going to Moscow, or we're going to have them in Kiev, and we want this, or go to the UN or what have you, and we're going to figure out how to stop the carnage. If he said that, it would probably end. He could do that. But instead, he's continuing it. And there he is meeting with U.S. arms manufacturers yesterday in Washington. He thanked them for their generosity in continuing to supply Ukraine with weapons of war. Now, I don't know if I'd use the word generous to describe those gentlemen, and I use the term loosely, and lady, and I use the term loosely in that picture. These are the presidents and top managers of Lockheed Martin. Let me see. Let me get you the exact names. I'll show you. This came from Michael Tracy, who I think does a really nice job as independent media. He's gotten a lot of criticism. People mock him and whatever. I think he's been spot on many issues. And I caught this from his Twitter feed. And this is, by the way, was confirmed. I saw this, I think it was Newsweek as well. I didn't give you that story because I thought Tracy deserved the honors, right, to be credited with bringing this, at least to my attention, and by extension to yours if you hadn't read the story. But he met with executives from Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and others. And although, again, I think he did praise their generosity, those folks are making mint. They're the ones who are profiting from death, destruction, carnage. And it's our, in a way, it's our fault. Why are we letting them? Why are we allowing this to happen? As much as I don't think Trump was a good president, he does say the right thing about Ukraine. He wants it to end. He wants the war of the killing there to end. Biden, on the other hand, has been warning, beating the drums. Oh, no, what will happen? What will happen if we don't keep supplying Ukraine? Well, I think the first thing that will happen, especially if we pressure Ukraine and Russia, is there will be less deaths. There'll be less killing. And in the end, there will be accommodations made, and that's what needs to happen. This is a no-brainer, folks. It's a no-brainer. This is what we need to do, is end this. Stop giving money to is it fair to use the word murderer to describe those executives? I mean, I probably wouldn't. Certainly profiteer, soulless, sociopathic. They're all of that. I don't know if I'd quite call them murderers, unless they really did murder somebody deliberately, directly. It's kind of, like the way the Israeli Defense Forces is targeting close up civilians in Gaza. To me, that's murder. This is not quite what's happening here. But they're certainly enabling killing. They're certainly promoting killing, carnage, death, and destruction. And there's, in the end, there's really no, I guess the distinction between them and most murderers is their actions have led to far more deaths than your run-of-the-mill psychopathic serial killer. One of the defenses, one of the arguments that is sometimes made in support of the Ukraine war is, well, this is what the Ukrainians want. We're just giving them what they want. They're just protecting their country. Well, it's far from clear that that's true. Support for the war in Ukraine has been dropping. And I don't know how free people really are to even express their opinions. We know in Israel that protesters have been hosed down, have been pushed around. There are laws against criticizing the Israeli war on Gaza. I can't say that that's what's happening in Ukraine. I know that's something Jimmy Dore will say. I don't always think he doesn't always get it right. He said some things wrong. I think that one of the stories Dore has been promoting that I believe is incorrect, and I could not corroborate. I tried to find some evidence for this. It appears it is not true that Ukraine is conscripting minors. I don't believe that's accurate. So you can't believe everyone, anybody really on either side of any issue, sadly. Generally, the people who are profiting by getting you to believe what they're saying so that you'll pursue a policy that lines their pockets with money are the least credible. So when, for example, Lockheed Martin sponsors a conference where Jamie Raskin goes on and on and on about the noble Ukrainian freedom fighters and how evil Putin is, you got to realize, well, it's a load of crap. He's getting paid big money from donors, supporters at that conference who are weapons makers that, they're not in any way honest brokers. They have an agenda that's completely diametrically opposed to decency and humanity. So I always try to look at who's profiting by telling me a story. Who will profit if I believe what they tell me? And clearly, when you read in the New York Times how, if Ukraine falls, which isn't going to happen, right? I mean, there can be peace with Russia and there should be peace with Russia, and there would be peace with Russia with Ukraine remaining independent unless this war goes on ad nauseum, at which point perhaps Russia will overrun all of Ukraine and will take control. But when the New York Times tells you that we should be very, very afraid of the Russian bear, and if the Russian bear wins in Ukraine, and they will win if we don't continue to supply Ukraine with weapons, who profits by that? Who's benefiting from that? If you believe that, if you continue to vote for Joe Biden and you continue to vote for pro-war Democrats, who profits from that? And the answer is obvious, right? Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, said them before, General Dynamics, Halliburton, General Electric, I think, Westinghouse, all of them are making weapons, or they're making support technology and software. So they're all in the business of trying to persuade you to believe that we have some sort of noble calling in Ukraine. You got to bear that in mind when you come on and you start talking about how we have to stand up to Putin. All right, here's some folks who are actually related to, who know people who are actually standing up to Putin. Let's hear what they think about all of this.
They've met regularly over the past few months here on Independence Square in Kyiv. Those Ukrainian women demand that their husbands, fathers and brothers who joined the army come back home. Among the protesters, Anastasia worries for her 50-year-old husband, who suffers from diabetes and joined the armed forces in February 22. She thinks he can no longer fight efficiently and asks for his demobilization.
We're not in favor of stopping everything here and now. We're not asking for the end of the war. No, we want a replacement. Just today, someone was telling me that nobody was talking about demobilization in 1943. But back then, it was different. Everyone was fighting. It was a general mobilization. Every man was...
All right, so let me stop it there. So first of all, this wife, I believe, of a Ukrainian soldier is saying that she's not calling for it. They're not calling for a total end to the war. They just want some relief for their husbands, spouses, loved ones who are at the front. But they want relief. They want their endless tours of duty to end. And she brings up how in 1943, which was during the war with Germany, or between Germany and Russia, that there was general conscription and nobody was demobilized. But I was really curious about that because Ukraine fell to the Nazis in 1941, and they weren't pushed out of Russia completely. At that point, Ukraine was part of Russia. They weren't pushed out of all of Russia, including Ukraine, until I believe 1944, maybe even 1945. So was that general mobilization in Ukraine for the German army or for the Russian army? There was a lot of sympathy for the Nazis in Ukraine. And it's very understandable why. I mean, Stalin was a tyrant, a brutal, murderous tyrant who did terrible damage to Ukraine in terms of the agricultural forced agrarian revolution and all of that, just seizing land from peasants and seizing their grains. And I think there were many, many people killed by the Stalinist regime in Ukraine. So the Russians were hated at that time. And another reason that the Nazis were welcomed to a degree was because Ukrainians were very anti-Semitic and hate Jews. They did then, perhaps less so now. I don't really know. Zelensky is at least of Jewish heritage. So I'm not sure. Were those general conscripts in 43 fighting Russia then too? My guess is they probably were, as far as I know. I don't know. There were definitely Ukrainian battalions and divisions that fought alongside the Germans in World War II. But in any event, she's saying, well, it's not the same as 43, and obviously it's not the same. So it's a different situation, and she's just saying we want an end to all of this, at least for now and for our husband soldiers. Now, she's saying we don't want an end to the war. I don't think she can say that. I mean, I think she's being careful, because if she went too far, she might get arrested. But, you got to take what people say and believe what they say. So if she's saying, I don't want this war to end, I don't want to, quote, surrender to Russia, which she may believe is what an end to the war would be, which it certainly doesn't have to be. That would explain also why you wouldn't support giving up, because you don't want Russia to take control of your country. But that's not necessarily the end game. There's no reason to think it would be the end game.
That war.
Like Anastasia, Dasha, an actress, demands a better support for soldiers. Her husband, a documentary filmmaker currently fighting, shows acute PTSD syndromes.
He's physically here, but mentally, he stayed on the front line. The most important thing when they come back home is that they get rest. And during their stay, there should be military psychological training and rehabilitation.
Dasha awaits answers from the government, which recently asked the army for a new mobilization strategy. But this process takes time.
We obviously understand the family's position, but right now, it is necessary for soldiers to fight on the front line. To this day, there is constant mobilization. We recruit new people, but training them takes time.
On Maidan, Anastasia and Dasha hope that the movement they joined will keep going, and that they will gather enough signatures for their petition to be heard by the government.
All right, so when you're, and again, I asked the question to start this program, what is our moral duty? What is our obligation in the face of this evil, the endless war in Ukraine and Israeli genocide in Gaza? So what is our moral imperative? And you can see the pain that the Ukraine war and our promoting endless war is inflicting on those women. And I say women because I think it was pretty much all women calling for their husbands to come home. And you heard also the Ukrainian spokesperson saying, well, that ain't going to happen. We're conscripting new people. Don't worry, there's lots more we're going to feed into the war maw. But that doesn't mean we get to let your spouses go. And how could they? I mean, the casualty rates are extraordinarily high. And the number of soldiers is dwindling and keeps dwindling. So the only solution is either, again, full mobilization and more death and more carnage and more profits, or an end to the war. What is our moral imperative? I say it is to call for an end to the war, to do everything we possibly can to end that war. And I don't know how you can vote for Joe Biden for president. You can support Joe Biden for president in light of his full-throated support for that war. I don't know how you can vote for Democratic representatives who have voted consistently, I mean, I think by pretty much acclamation, to keep funding the carnage. And even for those who raised a peep against it, every last one of them voted for Hakeem Jeffries, the Congress member from AIPAC and from Wall Street, who's a complete supporter of this war and the killing in Gaza. I don't know how our obligation as human beings to say no to evil can possibly allow for us to stay here in our peaceful, warm, comfortable homes and support these these warmongers. I mean, there's only so many words. All right, war hasn't just torn apart Ukraine. It's also doing an incredible number in Gaza. And it's not really a war, because I've used the term turkey shoot, which I don't like to use that word that expression, because it feels like it's minimized. It's like it's almost I don't want to say humorous, but it kind of doesn't fully reflect. It's a human shoot is what it is. It's a murderous rampage is what it is. It's a genocide is what it is. Here is your PBS NewsHour from yesterday, reporting on what's happening in Gaza. And before I get that on the screen and play it for you, I just want to remind you what I did call today's program on social media was sorry, Yousef and Olga, no peace for you. So I took two very common names in Gaza and Ukraine and pointed out that it's Christmas time. This is supposed to be a time. It's supposed to be a time of peace and love. And it's just the friggin' opposite. And you can see these children in this picture. They're in Gaza City, and this is what they're experiencing. And again, what do you believe is our moral obligation in these times, in this circumstance? Here's play the clip.
Welcome to the NewsHour. Israeli officials today said they are prepared for a long fight in Gaza, lasting months or longer. This as international criticism over Israel's war with Hamas grows.
Meantime, on the ground, the heavy fighting continues as nearly 2 million Gazans await life-saving aid.
All right, 2 million Gazans awaiting life-saving aid. And that was from yesterday. So this is very current news. Very current reportage. And again, no peace for Palestinian children. No peace for Palestinian parents. No peace for Palestinian civilians. No peace for Palestinian grandparents. No peace for Palestinians right now. Israel is bound and determined to just continue for months. And it's completely unclear what they say, well, we want to get rid of Hamas, but their actions don't suggest that. They said they had to bomb some hospital, the Al-Shifa hospital, and say some, and kill lots of patients there, and lead to others getting no treatment and dying as a result, because there were some tunnels under there which were where Hamas is holed up. We haven't heard anything about that. We haven't found any. There are no Hamas soldiers that have been identified as in there. Nothing. We haven't heard anything about that. So now they're going after, this is from today. This is from Al Jazeera today. Israel bombards Rafah as pressure mounts over civilian death toll in Gaza. At least, so in the attack this morning, 26 people killed. That levels homes in the southern city. Now, it wasn't the southern Gaza area where Israel said, we're not going to attack. You'll be safe there. You'll be safe there. Go there. You'll be safe. But if you don't go there, we can't guarantee your safety. Well, apparently, Israel ain't going to guarantee anybody's safety in Gaza. Instead, they're going to continue to be targeted and continue to be killed. And 26 just in that one attack. I mean, that's just a tiny little, number compared. And it's, of course, for the people who lost loved ones or who killed themselves, it's It's devastating. It's life-destroying. And yet, it's a tiny fraction of the total number that Israel has killed in the past 2+ months. So there's a picture, today's date, right? Today's the 14th, had to check. Palestinians flee after an Israeli bombardment in Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. So there you see the leveling, what's going on. And in terms of the casualties, 26 there that have been confirmed by the authority. But let's look at this just a little more with these numbers, a little more reportage from Al Jazeera, which I think everyone agrees is a reliable source. No one's doubts that what they're telling you is accurate, or at least as accurate as they can get it. One of the folks on the ground who was attacked said, "This is a safe camp. It's a refugee camp. There is nothing here." So why is Israel bombing them? Children play football. It's because Israel says we're doing this to get at Hamas. And yet there's nothing there. Children play football on the street. The Gaza Health Authority said 26 killed. Ministry of Health said 179 all told in Gaza, 303 wounded in just that one day, which apparently is one of the deadliest days we've seen in Gaza. The death toll now in Gaza, Israel killed. Israel has killed close to 18,000 Palestinians. 50+ thousand harmed, injured. And if you're wondering about the 26 people, I had a guest on, if you remember, last week, I think, who said they didn't believe anything coming out of Palestine. There's no information I'm going to accept. Al Jazeera is saying, hey, you saw the footage, shrouded bodies of at least 20 people, relatives mourning. Believe it. That's what we're doing. That's what we're supporting, that. Full-throated support. What's our moral obligation? What's our moral obligation? All right, I want to get to, how you're lied to by the media and why when it comes to the new Holocaust. But let's just stick with a more closely related story. And by the way, the climate Holocaust is not totally divorced, obviously, from either Ukraine or Gaza. I saw that Gaza may have significant natural gas reserves that Israel may be thirsting to get its hands on. I don't know if that's true. I saw a report of that. Obviously, Ukraine is a center for pipeline activity, and is also, its natural gas and oil reserves are also sought both by the West and Russia. So the fossil fuel extraction industry responsible for the new Holocaust definitely is very much involved, and in a very bad way, very negative way, in promoting these conflicts, these wars, the killing. So it's not like we're going off in a totally different tangent when we talk about how media lies to you about the seriousness, how it minimizes the seriousness of the climate Holocaust. But I want to just stick even closer to the topic, and this is Islamophobia, anti-Semitism to the extent that might exist on college campuses. And let's get back to our favorite college president, Claudine Gay, who I will acknowledge has taken up a lot of my attention. Like, maybe she's getting a little more than she deserves. I think part of it is because I'm really, really, frankly, personally irritated by Brianna Joy Gray's insistence that Claudine Gay is somehow getting a raw deal, and she's too, because she believes in free speech and she supports the Palestinians, and therefore she's being targeted. And that's just a load of crap. It's just not true at all. I mean, there may be people who really believe that, right? But the truth is that Claudine Gay has been an unabashed supporter of the pro-Israel students and the pro-Israel lobby and has done virtually nothing for those protesting against Israel's atrocities. What this has become really, and Brianna Joy Gray has really striven hard, and I'm not going to play any clips from her today. Maybe if I get to it tomorrow. It's just too much to get all this stuff together, frankly. She's really pushed hard not to say that there's some sort of identity thing going on with her. She's black, Brianna Joy Gray, and so is Claudine Gay. And she's saying, I'm not defending her because she's black, but because she's a champion of free speech, which is clearly BS. She's not. Dr. Gay is no champion of free speech. So that can't be the reason that Brianna Joy Gray supports her. So is it because they're both black? I don't know. But what this newspaper here that I just quoted, and it's a black journal, is reporting a couple days ago the black Harvard alumni who rallied to defend the school's president. And this is one of the reasons, I think the ultimate reason Claudine Gay didn't lose her job is because the board of trustees, who are, very, very wealthy, influential, powerful people, not just at Harvard, but globally, they're comfortable with Claudine Gay. She's okay. She's not taking them on. She's not taking on power. She's not speaking truth to power. She's not supporting victims. But the black Harvard alumni certainly give them cover when they all come out and say, oh, no, we love Claudine Gay. She's great. She's not an anti-Semite. Oh, no, don't worry about that. She's not. No. So they're basically reassuring what the black Harvard alumni are doing. They're reassuring the real power, the money people. You got nothing to fear from Claudine Gay. You don't have to worry about her. And I think that's shameful. Because I want my university presidents to cause fear and trepidation among the rich and powerful. I want them to think, she may not be on my side. Maybe she really is on the side of the victims of colonialism and imperialism and endless war. I want them to fear that she might actually go to the students and say, you know what? Let's stand up to AIPAC. Let's stand up to the anti-tax folks. Let's take money and power and influence away from those at the top. And let's reduce inequality and inequities. That it would be what I want from my Harvard president. And you're most certainly not getting that from her. And that's why she keeps her job. And the Harvard black alumni put the fact that she's black above everything, as far as I can tell. I mean, you can argue and say that I'm somehow missing something, but tell me what I'm missing then. The real victims at Harvard right now, the people who are at risk, who are possibly in danger, and who legitimately fear for their safety, are Palestinian students, are Muslim students, are Arab students. We saw the video yesterday, I played it for you, of the young grad student being stalked by a professor's wife. Because why? What was the sin of the grad student? She was wearing keffiyeh. Oh, and by the way, did I tell you this? I changed my profile picture. Is it that what they call it? I'm not sure. There's a couple on Facebook to the Palestinian flag. I mean, again, I'm trying to do what I can to show. So I know it's like kind of, it's just performative. It's just visual, but still it's something. So that's how I'm, again, letting everyone know where my sympathies lie when it comes to the atrocities by Israel in Gaza. I'm with the oppressed. I'm with the victim. I'm with the Gazans. I'm with the Palestinians. And I'm with the grad student who was targeted by the professor's wife and subjected to an anti-Palestinian tirade, totally unfairly. So I looked through this article. I just get a couple of little quick pics from it, but this is such a bad, why is this picture so bad? I'm really not happy about this one. Let's see if we get the whole thing in here though. So let's see if you can read this. I hope you can. I did a better job. I don't think this was, maybe it was just the screenshot was bad. So Eve Gerber, the wife of Harvard econ professor Jason Furman, who was a 92 grad of Harvard and was in the Obama administration, his wife there, Gerber, apologized publicly after being caught on video harassing a Harvard grad student wearing keffiyeh. And as far as, and this was, you can see 9 hours ago, so this is breaking news. So as far as I can tell, from the Harvard alum perspective, or the Harvard administration's perspective, that's it, it's all done. Oh, she said she was sorry. And, you know, there was like pressure put on her. Probably her husband said, hey, you didn't look good. You didn't look good. People don't like it. Probably shouldn't have said that. So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I wish I hadn't said it. It's all over, right? That's the attitude of the administration. Now, why do I say that's the attitude of the administration? Nothing to see here, move along, right? Why do I say that? Because in this entire article, and I don't give it all to you, but you can go find it. Just Google Crimson. Gerber, Crimson. There's not one word from any Harvard administrator. Not a vice president, not a dean, certainly not the president. She doesn't say, oh, this is terrible. We can't allow this to happen. If we're going to protect Jewish students, we sure as hell have to also protect Palestinian students, Muslim students. She doesn't say that. She doesn't say one friggin' word. Shameful. Shameful. She should be fired. And that is why she should be fired. Now, I posted this also on Facebook. And by the way, this is a little weird. I want to show this to you. This little meme. Is that what you call it? So this was in response to a tweet from, I don't know, somebody that got a lot of views about how terrible it is that Claudine Gay is being persecuted and how wrong it is and how she's this champion of academic freedom, right? That's Claudine. So I was just so irritated by this nonsense, this garbage. It's completely false. And let me just, before, you can read it, so I'm not going to go through this. I'll take it off the screen in a second. But I just want to add, you don't see this anywhere else. I haven't seen one host make the case I'm making for why Claudine Gay should be discharged. Either they side with her, like, you know, if they're progressive, like Breonna Joy Gray, they side with her and say, oh no, she's getting a raw deal. She's being unfairly targeted. And those plagiarism charges, well, there might be something to them because after all, the Crimson did conclude that she plagiarized, but it's really not fair. She's being unfairly targeted. What the hell does that have to do with anything? Either she plagiarized or she didn't. Again, I'm kind of on the fence of that because plagiarism is really bad. I'm not clear she really misled anyone into believing that what someone else wrote, she wrote. So I kind of get that. Maybe she should get kind of a pass for that. Not sure about that. This is serious, though, and you're the president of the most influential, powerful university in the world. You should know better. She should have done better. But in the end, if she didn't really make you think she wrote what someone else wrote, it's not the worst thing. That said, at least one of the professors, I heard another professor say, no, this is terrible. She shouldn't have done it. I'm really mad at her. And that's one of the professors whose work she cited without proper attribution. So I'm kind of on the fence, but whether she should be discharged for the plagiarism allegation. But I'm not on the fence when it comes to her support. But again, where I was really going with this is I'm about the only person who's going to say she should be discharged because she doesn't support Palestinians. There are those who say she should keep her job because she's allowing the truth of the Palestinians to be heard. She's not condemning those who criticize what Israel's doing in Gaza. And it's true, she hasn't done that exactly. But she's come damn close. And then they're, of course, on the right saying she should be fired because she supports genocide against Jews, which is complete nonsense. I mean, it's hogwash. There's nothing she said that remotely suggests that she has any anti-Semitic tendencies or is allowing it to happen. In fact, it's just the opposite. The record's just the argument is, well, she thinks it's okay to say from the river to the sea. If you say from the river to the sea goes Elise Stefanik and other AIPAC backed shills in Congress, that's a call for genocide. Well, it's so absurd it doesn't even merit being addressed further. Who Claudine Gay is someone who sides with the Israeli lobby consistently. She condemned Hamas, but not Israel's ongoing brutality in Gaza. She called for a task force to address anti-Semitism, but remains silent when a professor's wife harasses a Palestinian grad student. She should go. She should go. All right, your thoughts, 240-242-5646. Last story. So that on Gay is hearkening back to what we talked about yesterday, what I talked about yesterday. The other story I really focused on, and I think I led with this, I'm pretty certain, was the absurd headline in the New York Times, or in the email I got from their Climate Forward, that there's this breakthrough, right? So let's see if we can get to that. This was so ridiculous. The world could be saved, right? That was it. This could change the world. I made the point, this is ridiculous. Climate, an unlikely breakthrough on fossil fuels. This was from yesterday for subscribers. And all you had to do was just look for a second at the actual language in the article to see how ridiculous it was. What the Times writer describes as an unclear, non-binding major breakthrough with caveats and wiggle room. My general belief is that major breakthroughs aren't unclear, they're not non-binding, and they don't come with caveats and wiggle room. So clearly the New York Times promoting this Dubai 23 summit as a changing point, an inflection point in the war against the new Holocaust. And of course, it's nothing of the kind. So why? Why is the New York Times doing this? And I mentioned, they get a lot of money from big oil. They get those big ads from the American Petroleum Institute. This is what I talked about yesterday. So I was very much intrigued by another email. This is from the Lever or the Lever. You can say either Lever or Lever. There's Lever Brothers. I know Lever Brothers, they make toothpaste. Colgate, right? No, which was Lever? I think Colgate makes Colgate. Colgate-Palmolive makes Colgate. So Lever Gleam, maybe they make, I don't know. Anyway, the lever, I guess, because I don't think you say lever when you are using the lever, right? The lever that Archimedes said, give me a big enough lever and I can move the world, or something of that sort, or fulcrum and lever, or whatever he said in Greek. So we don't really even probably know exactly how it would have translated back then. What the Lever reports is what I told you yesterday. So their dateline is the 14th. I discussed this yesterday. How big oil buys the news. And are you thinking it's Fox? Are you thinking it's One American News? Are you thinking it's the New York Post? That's not who the Lever's talking about. The Lever's talking about the liberal media, the progressive news, the folks that you read and you believe and you think they're telling you the truth and you accept unskeptically. Well, you know what? They're a bunch of liars. They're paid shills for the fossil fuel industry. And so they're not telling you nearly as much about how bad things really, really are, as they really are. So what the report in the Lever reveals, the New York Times, and I highlight the Times in this because that's who soft-soaped and exaggerated and overblew the implications of the COP28 summit. And why would they do that? Because they work directly with the oil and gas industry to produce branded advertorials. Now, when I read this, I started thinking, was that what Climate Forward was yesterday? I bet it was. Politico sends me their energy report. That's funded by Chevron Texaco. So I'm going to believe now. I'm going to go back to this. I didn't. So I want to say, look, you get the news from me. You get information ahead of time. I've been beating the drum that Claudine Gay ain't all that she's really part and parcel of the elites, that she's not on your side. She's not on the side of the Palestinians. She's not on the side of academic freedom. If she were on the side of academic freedom, right? If Claudine Gay were on the side of academic freedom, she would condemn the wife of a professor who stalks and harasses a student because she's wearing a keffiyeh. That's not academic freedom at Harvard. It's just the opposite. And Claudine Gay's got nothing to say about that. It's not academic freedom at Harvard if you placate and pander to claimed victims who can't point to one example of anything that was done to them based on their ethnicity or religion. That's not freedom of academia. And it's certainly the opposite when you ignore real oppression, when you ignore a genocide occurring in real time. That's not academic freedom. Claudine Gay is no champion of academic freedom. In fact, just the opposite. Are we getting just totally spun by media that tells you that Claudine Gay is a champion of academic freedom? And are we also getting, for example, Brianna Joy Gray, who I believe is totally above reproach when it comes to her integrity. I'm sure she's not getting paid a cent for it. But I'm trying to understand, where would she get this idea that Claudine Gay is some sort of a hero? Makes no sense. Is she reading reports like from the New York Times, from the Washington Post, defending her? I don't know. So I got to believe Climate Forward must be a BS advertorial now. I'm more and more convinced of that. I'll look into it tomorrow. I didn't confirm that. If you read stories that in the end make you think that bad actors, people who are responsible for harm, are trying to make amends or doing something to redress that, look very closely at who's funding the source. You just cannot accept uncritically, without skepticism, what any media tells you. And you must be especially vigilant if they're telling you something that you want to believe. That you want to believe. You want to believe Donald Trump is the Antichrist. You want to believe that the Biden administration isn't just pouring billions down rat holes for endless war solely because it profits some of his contributors. You don't want to believe that your top newspapers, your liberal elite newspapers, where you would be so proud if your kid worked. You don't want to believe, or grandkid worked. You don't want to believe that they're lying to you. And that's why you have to be triply vigilant against that very, very likely eventuality that they are indeed. And they are. I mean, they really are. They're lying to you. Over and over, there was no major breakthrough on fossil fuels. There was nothing. Instead, These newspapers, they tell you what their major donors, major funders, just like politicians, they're telling you what the people who write checks to them want you to read and hear. All right, I'll be back tomorrow for the free-for-all. I hope you'll join me. And more importantly, if you do join me, I hope you'll call. Because I have just been spouting day after day. And like I said, I've gotten some really nice compliments from people who watch, and I guess they like this, me just talking to myself. But I would like it much more if I were talking to and hearing from you. Let's hope that happens tomorrow, Friday. I plan to be on at noon unless something, delays me or there's some big story. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get everything ready. And that could be part of the reason. Or just, folks, I just want to say, these stories are so depressing. I mean, they're awful. Don't think I can just talk and talk and talk about 20,000 dead in Gaza, hundreds of thousands of casualties in Ukraine, and all for nothing, for bad reasons, bad motives. People were just acting for the worst, their worst impulses. The newspapers lying to you. Palestinian students getting harassed. Nobody gives a crap. That stuff is not fun. But we have a moral duty, don't we, to confront these evils.